What is going on, creatives? So what we have in this video is looking at Flux AI. And the main thing I'm looking at is this idea of taking your likelihood and placing it in your AI generated art, specifically for campaigns, for marketing material, for social media posts, where we have a lot more flexibility than we do with Midjourney. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I want to create a campaign, and we're going to call this the Digital Nomad campaign. And what we're going to do here is look at how do we generate these images, and how do we use Flux, and how do we train the model to do all of this. Okay, first and foremost, Flux AI is the newest model, but the main thing here is that it allows us to easily place our likeness. The main thing here, it allows us to easily place our likeness into the AI generated art. Now we have mobile apps. Meta has their chat where it allows you to create your likeness in AI art, but it's the ability to do it at scale and to do it easily and cheaply. So let's take a look at this. First of all, I'm going to go to blackforestlabs.ai. They are the creators of Flux, and we're going to select the model, and we're going to talk about the pricing, because the thing I like about Flux is that it charges per generation versus having a monthly fee. A monthly subscription is charging per generation. Finally, you will need an account with GitHub, because we're going to use Replicate as our base for interacting with the model and for paying for the images. Okay, so let's start off here with the blackforestlabs.ai get Flux. And you can see we have the Flux model. It does really great images, and I know there are a lot of people who will say this is superior to Midjourney. One of the things I will say, I still like Midjourney a little bit more because I like the user interface. However, it does a very good job. Now, there are three models that we can use. We can use the Flux Pro, and that is the highest quality model. I think the cost is a little bit higher. I think 3.55 cents per generation. Flux Dev is the middle model, 3 cents per generation. And then we have Schnell, which, if we look at Schnell, it is again 0.003 cents per generation. Now, I believe for really high-end customer-facing projects, I may go with Flux Pro, but Flux Dev, it works just fine. Now, where I would use Schnell is for those cases where I need to generate a lot of images. So let's say, for example, I needed somewhere along the lines of 50, 60, 70 images. I would use Schnell for that because of the cost. I'm going to go with Replicate because I'm just familiar with it. So we go to Replicate. This is the interface. Now, if you are familiar with OpenAI and the Playground, or you've ever dealt with Stable Diffusion, this interface is something you are technically used to. So we have the prompt, you have your aspect ratio, you have your image reference. Now, one thing about the image reference, the aspect ratio of the image reference will override the aspect ratio you put here. So what Flux does is it takes the image and that aspect ratio, and it defaults to that and will override whatever you put here. So just be mindful of that. Prompt strength, number of outputs, 2 or 3, number of inference steps. This is the I guess the number of steps it takes as it's generating the image. And we have a guidance number, we have a seed. Replicate is how we interact with the model, and it's how we're going to pay for the model. So you can see that I have set up my billing. I have not ran with the API. And you can see from my generations, just playing around with this, I have $3.86 and quite a few images, but $2.07 of that was training the model. So if I come over here, and I think we can kind of see here where it says Dev LoRa training. So it's using LoRa to do the training. It was $2.08 for training, $1.79 in generations. So it's not a lot of money, but you do need to set this up. Now, let's talk about getting the right images. When working with Flux, what I have found is that you need a prompt framework, and it's just going to work better with it. You can keep it simple, but what I've noticed is that having this framework gives me the consistency that I want and gives me the style that I want. So the first thing I do is start off with the shot itself. Medium shot, wide angle shot, dynamic portrait facing the camera. This is critical when generating any type of AI art, getting that medium shot, getting the camera angle. Those are the type of things that you just want to do. So that's typical. The next one is where I have found that I have to do something like this. So the Jimmy shoe, that is the trigger. Now, it doesn't require the @ but I put it in. And just so I can see it, that is my trigger. But black male, bald, broad nose, slim, athletic build, that's me. Okay. And it is a very simple description of me, but because we have the training data, that's all is required to really hone in on what Flux is going to create. So let's say if you were a white woman, red hair, freckles, those are things that I would highlight in this part of the prompt. The next part of the prompt is things we've been doing with Midjourney, with DALL-E, with all of the other AI generated arts. It's just really coming up with the technical fine tuning of what the image is, that composition. What is he wearing? What's the expression? Is there a second person or third person present? What's in the background? Your lighting, the framing. Those are all of the things that what we want inside of our image generation. That's important to get really the full context of the image. Even with a reference image, I'm using this template. And finally, that look and feel, the style. Now, there isn't a, I guess you say, censor on using an artist name. So this melancholy blue and gray palette is something I really like, inspired by Edward Hopper. If you know Edward Hopper, the famous Nighthawk painting that's in the Chicago Art Museum, and just a lot of other paintings, famous artists. So I use this description, and we could have ChatGPT or Claude generate this type of description for me, this style description. But as you will see, I'm very specific in what I want when I'm doing something like this. And again, we are talking about marketing campaigns, and so we're being very specific. If this was simply just a hobby, just natural generating images, I wouldn't use this palette. So now that we have our framework, we can now go to the model and generate some descriptions. I'm using ChatGPT-o1 for this because GPT-o1 is a reasoning model, and it gives, when you want specific outcomes, you need a model that's really going to adhere to the description, to the prompt. And the O1 model does things like this very well. And all I'm telling you is that we're generating images for a marketing campaign, a digital nomad lifestyle magazine, and it has a template, and it's to create four images, to describe 4 images. Okay. Now, the main thing here is at the end, I'm telling you, this is going to an AI generation model, so it is more technical description and not filled with adjectives and descriptive flowery language. And that's because if you ask ChatGPT, Claude to describe an image, you will get these words and these sentences to evoke emotion, because that's how humans are. But Midjourney Flux doesn't care about that. What it cares about are the technical details of the image and the style. And that's what we're trying to get. So now we need to train the model. And we're going to train the model by going to this link here on Replicate. And we're going to train our model. Now, in order to train a model, you need images of yourself. And these are the images I use to train the model. I made a mistake here, right? If you notice, I'm not smiling on any of these images. In fact, I look mad on most of them. And the problem with this is that this was kind of the default look that my model was giving. So I'm going to have to go back and take a bunch of more pictures with a bunch of different expressions, and I think because I'm very close and you don't see kind of like the rest of my torso, Flux is making my head a little big. And so it's one of those things that I would go back and I would take kind of medium shots. If I were doing this again, I would take a bunch of medium shots, not close-ups. And I would smile, I would do different expressions, maybe having even as many as 20 images. Okay, but here is the data set. And so in order to do this, what we're going to do is we have a trigger, and we saw that I'm using Jimmy Choo as my trigger, and you can see all of my images have the word Jimmy Choo in it. That's what you need. Now, you can have all of your images. Let's say if you wanted to change all of these, if I wanted to do a new model and I wanted that one to be Bear Fan 01, here's the trigger. Well, I would come here, highlight all of them, right click, and then go to rename. And then I would just say, I would just type image underscore. No, we're just gonna go with bear down. We're gonna call it bear down. All right. So now, as you can see, it changed all of the images to bear down. I would then just take all of these, move them to a zip file. And now we're ready to go to the next step, which is upload this to the link I showed you. Okay. So here is the link we have here. We will go to create a new model. We will call it bear down dash generator. We will make it private. And then we would just come in and upload it and then create the training. Okay, so I'm not going to do that for this because it's the same images I did before. So we'll just kind of ignore that. But then once we have that, here is the model. So my Jimmy Choo model is looking at this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to my model, and you can see here it says Jimmy Choo is the trigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to we're going to go to ChatGPT with the one model, and we're going to put in model here, and we're going to actually take the prompt. And again, the reason I'm a fan of the O1 model is because of this. You can see that it's going through and it's step by step is trying to get this prompt right. And we're gonna go with this one right here. So you can see that how well it adhered to the instructions. Okay, so if we come here and we say wide angle shot, shoot, no image, no mask, we go 16:9 ratio. Prompt is 08. If you come here to look at the logs, you can see that it's working through it. Oops. All right. And there's the image. And so you can see here is that it did a decent job of capturing me. That's what I am. But again, the expression is because all of my images, my data set is not of me smiling, so it takes some work to get me to smile with this. Okay, let's talk about some considerations. Reference images. I have found that creating the image in Midjourney using the character reference in a character weight of 10 is a good way of getting kind of the full composition what you want, and so is less random than if you were to just use the prompt itself. The replicate AI is a consideration again when we're talking about generating a lot of images, because you can imagine generating one image at a time will take some time. The API is what we have to look at to generate a lot of images at once. And still undetermined is it possible to use multiple triggers with the generation? And I'm going to test that out. But those are some considerations that going forward you really want to think about. But let's look at what we're talking about when it comes to the reference image. Okay, so here's Midjourney, and then I am going to go with copy the first one, come in, and we're going to try something out. Now you can see I have the exact same images in here, and I'm going to go with 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to go with these 3. We're going to switch it over to character reference. And we're going to take the weight down to 10. And I'm taking it all the way down to 10 because I'm not trying to get myself into a Midjourney image. It doesn't really work in Midjourney like that unless you use in painting. But I'm just going to and one thing I found with Midjourney is that 3 character references is a good rule of thumb if you're going to use character reference, especially yourself, because it struggles with it. And oftentimes Midjourney makes me look like Ving Rhames, actually. Oh, you'll see here, it just this is what Midjourney makes me look like every single time. This character here is what it does. All right, a brooding character, but you know, I'm fine with it. Now, I want to go to editor because I would like to scale out a little bit. Submit. And then close. Okay. So I just want to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to use one of these images for art. So we'll use this one. We will download it. I'll put in marketing, and then we will come over to our same prompt. I'm going to take the lower scale back up to 1. There we go. And we'll run it. Okay. And of course, again, because I'm a brooding, because I don't smile, and I didn't tell it to smile, you can see that it did not do it. Okay, so based on everything we have, this is the output that I had. So this was to get one image. The next, third image, and the fourth. Interesting enough, although the toes are messed up, the race of the reference image did not make that big of a difference. We will check to see if gender has that issue, but this is it. This is how we can use Flux, Midjourney, ChatGPT, or whatever language model you like to actually create images for marketing campaigns. And we will continue to look at Flux, and I will continue to look at Flux and stretch the imagination. Let's see what other things that we can do with this. But this is it right here. Okay, so I'm out.